Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So, mildly squirrely, both of you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Long day?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So, welcome to another edition of the Osteopathic Lyceum podcast. We are here at the Osteopathic Lyceum. It's amazing. So, we have Joy and Julia, who have both spoken before. Both are students, both are in the process of working on their thesis. Really, you've done almost everything, both of you, which is fantastic. So,
Yay!
golf claps, hey! Okay.
Just like mom.
Yeah. Okay, so what I have up on the screen, and clearly nobody's going to be able to see this just because of how this is set up, but you guys can see it, and it's awesome. You have never seen this represented.
No, never.
So one of the reasons that I want to do this is simply on account of the fact that I want to talk through the process and what it's like and seeing it and whatnot, and then actually seeing something as a comparison, because Joy, in yours, you did a control group.
Yes.
You did not.
No.
And that is totally okay on account of the fact that you can see pre and post difference. So your measurement was heart rate and blood pressure pre and post.
Yes.
You did that pre and post with respect to treatment, but you also did a control group.
Yes.
Pre and post laying still for 5 minutes.
Yes.
Okay. So pre and post is totally fine. It doesn't. You don't always need a control group. I say that out loud on purpose. But because you have a control group, we can compare your data and her data to the control group, which is awesome. So sometimes a collaborative approach that happens to accidentally cross over nicely is useful. So, okay, so simply, if you describe what you did, and you don't have to describe it directly looking at me, you can look at the camera if you want to, but you don't have to. It's all good.
Can we really look at the camera?
If you like, yeah.
I just did. I took blood pressure upon arrival, just lying on the table.
Yep.
And then I did a cervical treatment, whatever. I assessed the cervicals first, and then I did a cervical treatment based off the assessment. Different for everybody, obviously. It wasn't
the unique movements
Correct.
were different,
Correct.
but it was still fell under the category of cervical treatment.
Yes.
Yes.
And then once that treatment was finished, it was about a 5 to 7 minute treatment.
Yep.
I retook blood pressure and heart rate.
And pretty much consistently, you either noticed a change. So when you say blood pressure, you mean you used a blood pressure cuff
Yes.
that did blood pressure and heart rate.
Yes.
So the nice thing is that the machine was consistent, right? So some machines, people will talk about their reliability, but if you use the same machine, it's reliable to itself.
Yes.
Right? So and as is visible in the data, so you're here, right? So again, not everybody can see that, but this is mean arterial pressure. So this is a measurement that takes the diastolic, systolic, does some math to it, and you get the mean arterial pressure. So the change, this is the change. This is not the pre and the post, but this is the change, right? So you either got nothing or better,
Yes.
right? Whereas you got possibly worse, but mostly better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the way to describe this is for you, your average change in a positive direction for blood pressure with mean arterial pressure as the measurement, your average is 2.174196295. Lots of numbers. So not necessarily a large percentage change,
Right.
but it's a positive change or nothing. So we have the low value, which is 0, the high value, which is 6.734006734% change in mean arterial pressure. The standard deviation, 1.534051368. So the standard deviation is nicely clustered, right? So there's not a lot of difference between the high and the low value, which means that it was, say, a consistent change in a positive direction. Whereas, what did you do?
Okay, I did an assessment first.
Yes.
So I did a cervical, and I also did a cranial assessment.
Okay.
And then just general motions. And then I did the CV4 compression test, but first I chest tested.
Compression of the fourth ventricle.
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry to not be specific.
It's okay. That's what I'm here for.
Everyone knows what CV4 compression test is.
To me, if I heard somebody say CV4,
Yeah.
It's
I
a
would
car.
no, that's a CRV. No, CV4 makes me think of a Chris Rock mockumentary,
Oh,
which
wow.
was Cell Block 4 or CB4.
Oh.
So I don't think
I
of
wouldn't even have
osteopathy.
thought of that.
No, it's okay. I don't
Yeah.
think you watch the same stuff I watch.
No.
I think the card is not correct.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So I did the assessment. First before the assessment, I did the blood pressure, heart rate.
Yep.
And then after treatment, which kind of varied. So it was about 5-7 minutes for
Mhm.
some people, depending on
Mhm.
what I was feeling.
Mhm.
And then also just like tolerance and then kind of kicking back at some points.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah. So regardless, both of you had to tune into the individual that you were working on.
yes.
So one of the complaints about work like this is you didn't do the exact same treatment to everybody. It's
No, I
like
didn't.
I used a category of treatment, which required me to pay attention to the individual. You use the same method,
I use the same
but
method.
to use CV4 as a method, you must tune into that person.
Yes.
You must.
So
You have no
time
choice.
was, the treatment was the same for everybody, but time was different. It would vary.
The term that I would use is the technique was the same.
Yes.
Your technique would be different,
Correct.
but it was still the same category.
Yes.
Right, so there's some possible kickback there. So as far as limitations would be concerned, it's like it wasn't the exact same method, but it was the same region, and it was bespoke to each individual.
Mm-hmm.
You use the same technique, so it was the same location,
Yeah.
but it still had to be bespoke.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
your change, so I will highlight yours so you can see it, your mean arterial pressure change, your average in a generally positive direction was higher than yours. Now, you had 50, she had 20.
Yeah.
So this average may change if we have more. It may actually drop, right? But that's if we have more and we don't, and that's okay. Your low value was negative 1.9. So your average, let me say it out loud, 3.312595012 as your average positive mean arterial pressure change.
Yes.
Your low value was negative 1.93051931, which means that blood pressure went up, right? As mean arterial pressure went up, which
Yes.
is blood pressure, both measures. Your high value was 10.5263159. So as a percent change, higher than yours, right? So it's like with CV4, what we've observed with what we did is you can get more positive change, but you could also get negative change,
Yes. Yeah.
right? But this negative change is going, when we look at it, we're going to see something more with heart rate than here, right? So we'll do that in a second. But your range was higher, your standard deviation was higher, so it was more variable. So your cervical treatment is more reliable in its outcome. Its range of outcomes is more reliable. And we can see that with the standard deviation more than anything else, right? Because it's more tightly clustered. So your positive change was more trustworthy. Your positive change was bigger, but less consistent.
Yes.
Right? If we look at the control percent mean arterial pressure change, so you have, we'll call it 2.2, yours is 3.3 in a positive direction. The control, 0.14. So you're both considerably better than control, which means that we can trust that this actually does something to blood pressure, right? Both of yours actually does something to blood pressure. I wouldn't absolutely predict that, but it happened, right? So that's interesting. Would you say that means let's go ahead and do this to everybody, or we should investigate
further?
Yeah.
Not just because you're being scientifically intelligent, but because like I can't tell.
Right.
Yeah, we have something positive, but we can't tell. The low value for mean arterial pressure change with nothing, just laying still, negative 1.8. Your low value was negative 1.9. So it's like, I can trust cervical treatment to do nothing or better, so far as your data tells me. I can trust CV4 to possibly do worse than just laying down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah.
So it's less trustworthy for change in mean arterial pressure. Now if we scroll over heart rate change, okay? So heart rate change with a positive number means heart rate dropped, pre and post. So yours, 3.3931864443, we'll call that 3.4, right? Just to round it up. Your heart rate change, 4.4946811165, call it 4.5. So 3.4, 4.5 in a positive direction. Again, cervical treatment, either nothing happened to heart rate, like literally nothing, or it got better. Your high is 13.414634415. So that's actually a pretty good percent change for heart rate. Your high was, or sorry, your low, negative 2.857142857. So we could believe that CV4 could make it go the wrong way. Right? We have data which suggests that could happen.
Yeah.
That would never change, no matter how many more people you did. That would never change. Your high was 11.42857143. So both of you got a pretty good positive, right? The standard deviation, 2.62863353 for you, 3.6287388021. So your standard deviation again was wider. Now we can see that when we look at the range, right? So your low and your high value, your range is 14.2, your range is 13.4, right? So I trust yours to have a more reliable outcome. I trust yours to have a bigger outcome. That makes sense so far? Okay. Then when we look at the control for heart rate percent change, so I can trust both of you to do something good for heart rate generally as an average. Yours I still trust less because it could go the wrong way.
Yeah.
Right? So the average heart rate change for just laying down for 5 minutes, 0.3955555722419, whatever. I doubled up on 555, it's not actually that big. But 0.39. The possible low value, or the observed low value for literally just laying on your back is heart rate got faster, 4.2253522113, right? So heart rate went up just laying down. As far as you're both aware, is it completely normal for heart rate to just wave and vary? So we actually expect that. Your observation in your control group matched what is generally known, right? Completely cool. The high change for laying on your back, 4.054054 repeated. So generally a 4% swing in heart rate, plus or minus, just laying on your back. Both of you, so you were below the negative change, just laying on your back, right? So not as powerful. Yours did nothing, so again, I still trust yours more for a positive outcome. And so the range was pretty big. The standard deviation, so the standard deviation is what's interesting here with the change in heart rate. Yours 2.6 to, like we'll call 2.6%, or 2.62 standard deviations, that's not a percent. Standard deviation between all of your data, the normal deviation is 2.6. Pretty tight. 3.6, yours is more variable, right? You have less numbers of people, which means that if you had more, I would sort of suspect that it would get a little tighter.
Yeah.
But I don't know that for sure. But just laying on your back is much more consistent. The standard deviation is 1.2541102988. Okay? Don't worry about the numbers, just the specific numbers, just know that that's nice and tight. So not a lot is different between people, even though we see a high and a low of 4% in either direction. So it's nice and tight. So there's some signal of impact. There's no signal of statistical significance. So I ran a t-test. Yours is 50 people. That's really too big for a t-test. So I can't quite figure out exactly how to look for statistical significance. And I don't know that we need to.
Okay.
We have signal. We have something. And we have, just with simple mean and range, we have something interesting, right? And we have a control. Thank you, right? So the important thing to note is that something happened. How significant it is, tough to say statistically right now with what we've done so far. Okay, so done a lot of talking there. Did that do anything for what you've been doing so far with respect to your written and your interpretation?
A little bit. I have more understanding of the numbers.
Yes.
For sure.
Sweet.
Yes.
Because we normalize them and now you can see it and you
Yes.
can see a comparison. Okay.
Same. Because when I look at my raw numbers, I think I've mentioned this to you before, it seems like most people, like heart rate, blood pressure went down.
Yes.
But I have like a couple outliers that
Yes.
when you look at it this way, you're like, oh, the outliers are important.
Yeah, but now here's the thing. Your outliers will be more powerful to your data because you have less people. your outliers will be less powerful to your data because you have more people. So there's this concept called central tendency. So you take random samples all over the world, and you kind of do a bell curve. It might look like your data's over here and your data's over here, but if we did it enough, it would kind of come to the middle. And that's why I say that the standard deviation in yours, if we did more people, would probably get a little tighter.
Yes.
It probably would with more people. We don't know that, but we can predict that.
Yeah.
Right? And the reason I say it that way is because, as you both said, it would be useful from what you've done to look for more. So the whole point of me doing this with you in this moment, as well as recording it, is to say, with respect to what we're doing with the Osteopathic Lyceum, this gives us cause to do something more. You don't have to do it, but the Osteopathic Lyceum, as a construct, as an institution, could have this be furthered by another person.
Totally.
Right?
I employ them to. Off you go.
Employ them?
Or whatever.
Implore.
Implore them to.
Yes.
Yeah. It's been a long day.
That's okay.
I'm also not that smart.
Well, we're not doing that. So, but the interesting thing is when you see it represented in a different way, when you look at your raw data, it's just like a bunch of numbers that make you cross-eyed.
Oh,
Yes. Yeah.
Right? And like you say, it's literally two people that make your spread bigger.
Yes.
Right? And also make your standard deviation larger. Right? The standard deviation is just how much does it normally differ from one another. But compared to the control, no matter what parameter we look at, we see that there's something positive happening. I, as an individual, say that the osteopathic work is good, the stories are messed up. This allows us in a normalized way that could be agreed upon based on, taking an observation, turning it into a number and comparing. That we can see something. It may not be super powerful because we don't have enough numbers. You have enough numbers for some power, but we really, to have some true analysis of variance, we should have had you do another condition 50 more times, possibly unmanageable, right? And that's one of the things. So you've heard me talk about the term utility, right? With respect to analyzing or assessing things. Utility is, do you have the time, the money, and the skill, right? Basically with respect to research. I don't know if you need to spend the time to do that because we can see something.
When you say another...
Like you would need to do something. So what you would do to compare is, let's just say you would do shoulder
I
treatment.
was just about to say that. Like just another area.
Another area.
Okay. I
Yeah.
can.
You don't have
I
to.
wanted to.
Do you want to?
It's getting the people back in.
Yeah.
And a control group again.
You wouldn't need a control group.
No, even if it's just the shoulder,
Nope.
because it's a different
You
area.
have a control group of just laying
Just
down.
lying there. That's right.
Yeah, so that is your control group.
Yeah.
Just, is this better than doing nothing?
Okay. I'll debate it. I'll
Okay.
think about it.
Okay. Now, the other nice thing here in this moment is that this is actually part of how this works. We have some signal. You have something to report on. You don't have to do anything else. If you think you can and you wanted to, you could just choose another area, treat it, and see what it does.
Okay.
So is the other area better than just laying down? Is the other area the same as, or worse than, or better than treating the neck? Maybe, right? So what that would actually do, if you chose to do that, or somebody else can use your data as a foundation and then just do
Work
that
off
piece.
that. Yeah.
Just do that, as long as you were willing to allow them access to that.
Totally.
Okay, they would be able to just do 50 people, treat a shoulder, and then see what the heck happens. Because so what would you predict? If treating the shoulder had a similar impact on heart rate and blood pressure, mean arterial pressure, what would that mean about the power of treating the neck for it?
There's some validity to it.
But say they were the same.
Oh, if they were the same,
If they were the same.
then treating the neck is no different than treating the shoulder
Yeah.
for blood
So
pressure and heart rate.
what would that do if somebody wanted to investigate further the impact of treating any given area on heart rate and blood pressure? What would you have to do to say it doesn't matter where you treat?
Have the same outcome.
Have the same outcome and just check everywhere else in the body, right? Now, based so far, this is how we build predictions from data. Based on what both of your data say, do we have signal that it actually might matter?
Yeah.
right? Now, it's not strong enough necessarily, but we have signal.
There's a twinkle.
There's a twinkle that yours is more trustworthy and yours is more powerful, right? Very close areas, CD4, basically, you just do a volleyball bump on the base of the skull, and then you work the neck, right? Very, very close anatomically, but we see something. We see something. So if we go to the shoulder, which is proximal, we treat the shoulder in whatever way, and we see a similar outcome, then we're like, oh, maybe it doesn't matter. We have to chase that down. If we see a variable change, oh, we need to chase this down. So now I need to go through it. No matter what happens, this is set up for somebody to go through the entire body, or many people to go through the entire body, and literally do something as simple as check heart rate and blood pressure with the same cuff that you used.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, well, son of a gun. But we have to do it, because we might have some really funny stuff happen.
Right.
So, as an example, if anybody was interested, come on back. It doesn't matter if it comes back. But basically, what will happen, we got food on the way. Sorry. What would happen is, as in a very simple way, somebody can go check all of this out.
Yes.
Right? Okay, so now, to switch from that, neither one of you has ever done anything that's thesis-based.
No.
You've sort of done like experiments in high school.
Yeah.
I did research in massage school. We had to.
When you say research, what do you mean?
We did a research class. Do I remember it? No.
They talked at you about research.
How to find research data, how to find the articles.
But not to actually do it.
No, we didn't do anything.
So you were doing the collection of other people's data.
Yes.
Okay, whereas this is, you have to generate a question, a prediction, figure out how to do it, actually do it, record it, and then do something. Now, under the circumstances, I have done some of the lifting on the data side. You put it in, and I started to tinker with it to see, partially because I need to improve my ability to deal with statistics, right? I'm not the worst, and not the best. But if we compare what you did, because did you ever do a research methods class?
I don't even remember.
Yeah, that's fine. And that would have been at the university level.
Yeah. It's been a bit.
Yeah, that's fine. Interesting, challenging, the difference between what the heck they talk to you about in massage school.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely challenging. Yeah. And also not writing a paper in over 20 years was challenging. But once I got going, it was quite easy to continue.
Yes.
Once the momentum was there.
Absolutely. As with anything else, step by step, right?
Yeah.
Similar.
Yeah, similar. I think it was a little bit tricky to, not so much gathering the data, it's just putting it all on paper, because I haven't done it in a while.
Yeah. So the writing process.
Yeah, the writing process is tough.
If I give you the concept of short-term novelty, does that seem to describe the challenge?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's not about skill. It's like the writing isn't hard. It's just you're not practiced.
Correct.
Yeah. So it's like it's not
It's
hard.
time consuming.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've done lots of writing. It's time consuming.
Yeah.
Right. So, although not finished, do you think this has been useful to your ability cognitively, clinically, or is it just, would you call it more an academic exercise? Now, when I give those three options, even though this is on camera, I'm not concerned about what your answer is. I actually need the feedback.
The last one you said.
Just academically? Okay.
For me, clinically.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it'll help in the sense that, when I practice on people, it's something that I can integrate in my practice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Integrate how?
Like just by actually doing a little bit of cranial and implementing the cranial osteo. Yeah.
Is that the door?
Yes.
Sweet. Is that pizza?
Trying, yes.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, you sneak out.
Sneak
Go get the pizza. We'll keep talking.
I think because
No, you're gonna go past it anyways. It's good.
I think because I touch people for a living, the actual experiment itself was not overly difficult to perform.
Yeah.
And because I've taken blood pressure and heart rate many times.
Yeah.
That was standard for me.
Which is nice because you use a previously existing skill set
Yes.
in a positive way.
Yes.
Say, if I give you as an individual the concept of cognitive benefit, right? Like a way to think about stuff.
Yes, I will say there was definitely.
Yeah, God damn it.
Mid-sentence. That was definitely valuable.
Okay.
Will I ever do it again? No.
Yeah, So maybe if I offer you as a human being, was it a possibly useful experience, even if it's something that, based on what it did, that you just wouldn't do it again?
If I'm ever asked to find a research paper, I'm able to figure out how to do that. Not that that's a hard thing to do, but
Yeah.
when you don't have a skill to figure out, is this a decent paper with good,
Method?
yes, as opposed to like, I don't know, a journal article that's written by
Yeah, yeah.
whoever, in whoever's journal. That was the difficult one for me. But we had also talked about, I was doing all of it based on osteopathy. And those are very difficult to find because there isn't a ton of research.
No, and my claim, you've probably heard me say this, osteopathy is bad at science.
Right, so when we kind of boiled it down to, okay, no, figure out heart rate, blood pressure, vagus nerve, and those then I was set.
Yeah. So having actually gone through the process of generating a question, setting up some methods, and then having to look through previously existing research, do you think that will make you better at understanding what the heck people are trying to claim?
Yes.
Right? Now,
Yeah.
if I had just asked you to look up a bunch of research papers,
No. No, that's useless.
because you didn't feel the pain.
I didn't, well, if I'm just looking them up, I'm also not reading them.
Yeah.
And for me, I think for me, my topic was almost, I assumed nothing was going to happen. It was
Yeah.
just like,
Well,
nothing
no,
was
sir, I
happening.
didn't like it.
Yeah.
I really like it.
But then when I started seeing change, I was like, oh, okay, I'm proving this all wrong. Like, I think I was wrong about this.
Honestly,
Right?
until I did the control group, I felt the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, so the thing that I would predict, and I have predicted, and it seems like you're sort of in line with what I thought would happen, is that to actually experience the nuisance of finding people
Yes.
running the experiment, setting up the methods, what the heck do I say about this, gives you insight into what it's like to write something like this, or do something like actual experiment, such that when you read something somebody else is like, look, there's research on this. You're like, the frustration can... Now, when I say that, it's almost like I'm generating a preference for how you do it. And I will always claim that all education is indoctrination, right? It kind of has to be, because thinking is dependent on details. But it's not like I'm forcing you one way or the other. Because if you took on my preference, I'm totally, no, sorry, I didn't like it. It's like,
Right.
who cares about what it does to heart rate and blood pressure? It's like, well, somebody should care, and even if I initially don't, I should check. Because this is interesting to me. It may not be as interesting to you as it is to me, but, so overall, do either one of you or both of you have commentary outside of what I've already sort of tried to draw out of you?
No, I will say that by the end of it, I mean, I know now I'll never do it again, but it hasn't been awful.
Okay.
Like I enjoyed doing the experiment. I actually enjoyed the control group too, because I saw a difference, and it was actually then where I was like, okay, maybe it does do something.
Yeah. That I wouldn't have expected based on
Yeah.
the previously existing data. 'Cause
Yeah.
It's just not good.
Yeah.
And it's mixed. Like, there's so much variance in the existing data.
So the important thing about seeing something like the variance is that when people say things like, oh, it's just numbers, right? Like, no, they don't like quantitative stuff, they like qualitative stuff. I want to know how they felt, right? And I'm like, so I've said this to you before, a number is essentially an agreed upon standardized way to represent a quality, right? You can create a qualitative number, right? Like, it sounds a little funny when I say it that way, but now you know that when you look at data and you see averages, you're like, yeah, but there's this one way over here and this one way over here. So like, the numbers show you that these people are different, right? And that's important, which is why it then relates to all of your treatments have to be bespoke. But there's a way to do that that you normalize, acknowledge. It's like, okay, I'm going to do CV4 to everybody, but each person's CV4 is different, right? I'm going to do cervical
Do you
treatment
mean
to
bespoke,
everybody.
like tailored to the person?
Tailored to, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, made for.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for asking.
Sorry.
Right. If you have that question, then other people will too. So thank you. I use fancy words sometimes, knowing that people won't know them, because you always hear me. I'll use a fancy word and then I'll give you a bunch of synonyms. Yeah. And whichever one you like.
Okay.
Right.
I like bespoke.
Yes. Now you can use it.
Yeah.
But that variance is important to see.
Yeah.
Right. So now, not only have you seen what an average looks like, you've seen that the average is made up of all these points. So you feel that. So now when somebody says, like you look at somebody reporting just the average and they're really focusing on the average, like,
Show me the rest.
yeah, I want to see I want to
Yeah,
see the
100%.
difference. So standard deviation is a way to report the difference. But standard deviation doesn't look like -2 and +11. It looks like 3.6.
Right.
That's different. So one of the reasons I wanted to break it out this way is so that you can really see that. Right? It's like, no, there's big swings. Right? So again, the net result of this is I trust the cervical treatment more for a positive outcome. I trust yours more for a more powerful outcome. However, heart rate you did better on, and you did better on mean arterial pressure. So what the heck does that mean? Like, we have something to figure out if other people want to follow on. All sounds good?
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Hungry?
Yes.
Started.
Sweet. Okay, I will press stop. Well, I will press stop recording. I will stop recording. Thank you. Hopefully it was useful.